All right, we're back again with round two. I have JD Lehue sitting across from me again, and we're going to unpack a little bit about what he's doing with his life right now. So, little known fact about you, Justin, is that when you retired out the Marines and you're on your terminal leave and all that good stuff, that you actually went to the Fredericksburg Fire Department and you trained over there as a trainee for 4 weeks, which I find very fascinating. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think that's a pretty cool bit of information about you. But then kind of your true calling came, and I believe like your passion for, for service came along, where you became the COO of the world's most successful recovery mission of service members called History Flight. And recently, you walked across the country, historic US 20, 13 states,
crazy,
with two of your friends to raise awareness about that. So would you mind, I'm going to hand over the baton to you. Would you mind walking us through a little bit about History Flight, your long walk, the friends, and then we'll pack it from there.
Yeah, a little thing is off of that is back in about 2015 timeframe when I was Sergeant Major for Training and Education Command. Package kind of comes across my desk, and it is an honorary a package consideration for an honorary Marine. Comes across, take a look at this, go through this. There's a guy in there named Mark Noah. Not anybody that had really a military background, I'd say. UPS pilot, captain, flying, 737s and things like that. And what the package was about was, this is a guy who was spending his own money and whatever money he could raise to go out to the island of Tarawa, which first caught my attention. And they were trying to locate and return 541 Marines that had been left on that island. And even being a historian, it's loosely known that there was all these people still missing. Even a lot of active duty people don't know that we left all these Marines out there, or we left pilots in Europe and this. And he was getting some success that was on it. And he had recovered a good identified amount, was on here. So him and his family comes up, and we do the honorary Marine ceremony. It's kind of like, yeah, I think he should be an honorary Marine. So General Lukeman and I do it over at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Don't think two things about it, go on about our lives the next couple of years. So I'm in transition class, and they ask you in transition class, kind of, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years?
Right.
And what are you planning to do when you get out of the Marine Corps, right? And my wife has shown me, she said, look at what you wrote on there. You had no idea how to make that happen. You don't have an archaeology pedigree, nothing like this. And it said, MIA search and recovery. That's what I'm going to do. My transition out of the Marines.
So you actually wrote that on the sheet of paper?
Wrote that on that sheet of paper. That's what I'm going to do. So
interesting.
Last year, I kind of go to Walter Reed, get some things fixed, combat injuries, everything else. The Marine Corps is very good about getting me patched up a little bit before, hey man, you made the decision to retire, so we're going to move you out the door. And roughly about that time, Mark gives me a call. And I kind of reached out to him, had a little bit of a conversation. And he said, hey, how about coming down here to the Keys? That's where I live at. And we had a conversation. And he brought in a bunch of other people, sat around, they discussed cases, and I taught about Tarawa and all of this thing. And he said, thank you for coming down. No sooner was I back in the house up here in Fredericksburg in about a half an hour, as if there was a camera somewhere, I get a phone call. And he said, so have you figured it out yet? I said, what's that? And he goes, a job. You got a job if you want one.
Yeah.
He goes, that was a job interview. All those people that came in, that was the head scientist, that was this person, that was these people.
Yeah.
I flew them all in here, kind of sat around. And when you walked out, we had you in pegged for a certain job. Now there's a different one. I'm like, what's that? He goes, we want you to run everything.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, what is everything? Because I have no idea the context of the scope of any of this. And rapidly, I had to figure out everything was what you made it. Meaning as good as the research, as good as getting out and managing teams and putting together elite teams to go out all around the world to do the research to locate and repatriate America's missing in action. The field of MIA search and recovery draws some interesting people, for lack of a better word. And what I mean by interesting is a lot of people, you don't know what they're really doing it for. You know, some people relate it to, it's like an Indiana Jones thing. There's a thrill of this, there's that. Other people relate it to, over the years, they've went out and say they're doing this, but they're actually raiding aircraft sites, or people are robbing people's graves in Europe, or there's a nefarious part of why people are saying we're out looking for all of these missing in action around the world, because it's really nebulous. And there wasn't a lot of rules of a job laydown on how you really go about doing that. So I just applied the same things. It made me very successful in everything else I was doing in my life that they liked. And it was, you know, build the teams, get to know the teams. How does this work? How does that work? Give me a couple books on, I can't go to college for the next 6 years. So give me 2 books from you that would teach me what I need to know that specifically relates to this. And you would get that from a 70-year-old archaeologist. And then I'd go to the 25-year-old archaeologist and go, I want 2 separate books from you, because your 2 books are not going to be the same as his 2 books. And they would compress that, start to learn the language, you start to involve in the conversation, people start to invite you more to the conversations, you start to build these successful teams, and then you really start getting this return on investment that exponentially is at a faster rate than anybody else in the industry is now finding, locating, and returning people. And we built a team. That was about 5 years ago. Started to bring on a lot of veterans, disabled veterans as well. Very therapeutic for a lot of them. I drafted up a thing on how this kind of line of work is very therapeutic to people that are going through a lot of the combat traumas you and I discussed on the previous episode of, you might not be able to bring your buddy back, but you can help bring this Marine back.
Yeah.
Or you can help bring this soldier back or this sailor back. And there's a fulfillment in that to those people. It's very therapeutic. And they bust their butt. They're out there doing that.
Right.
And you're building this cohesive team that comes from all walks of life and international. And it's like what you and I discussed about watching Marines on the battlefield, where it doesn't matter the race, creed, color, anything. You watch this magical thing happen, and the end result was success in battle, or a good unit, or anything else. You took the same thing, and you took Democrats, Republicans, women, men, people not in the military, people in the military, in all walks of life that people say they shouldn't be getting along today's day and age. And you're getting 93% return on finding everything that you're looking for, with probably one of the most diverse populations that you have on a single team that does not come from the same backgrounds, and maybe don't even have the same belief systems that are in there, but they have a belief system rooted in the work that they're doing and how that work fits into their life, and also how that fills a void in someone's life that has had a missing child or a missing family member, that people want to know, Mark, what happened. It's not enough that somebody's son perished in a plane crash in the Burma hump. They can't visit a grave, so there's some closure that is really an empty void. And I found that even in our own experiences, is if you can provide that sort of closure for people want answers. They know they can't change the end result. Their loved one is gone. But mom, before she died, promised grandmother that they wouldn't stop looking for Jack, because when grandma was on her deathbed, Jack's the only grave that's missing in the family plot, because they don't know where Jack's at. But everybody else's son who was killed, they got a headstone. They got a place to visit. They've got that. And then you would find out and talk to these family members, that was one of mom's last wishes, was, don't stop looking for Jack. And then that would pass down to the next generation, the next generation, and the next generation. And 70, 80 years are going by, and there's no answers. So after you can take a case that has been technically a missing person, like all these crime shows on TV, it just happenstance they're in the military, but they're a missing person. It's like somebody goes missing in Tennessee. It's the same void in that family. somebody there. And you can take all that and look at what everybody's done over 70 years to try to find that individual. Piece all that together with today's technology, with a lot of the resources and all that that maybe people didn't have 20, 30, 40 years ago. Layer all that on, neck that down, go make another attempt out there. And then after all those years, the government knocks on their door, makes a phone call, just like they did when we were on active duty, to say, we'd like to be some of the first people to tell you that we just found your grandfather.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue to kind of a couple follow-ups for you. You know, I'm subscribed to your on Twitter to your History Flight organization, and I follow you guys closely. And the title is always, you know, the world's most successful recovery mission. Can you? And I got a 2-part for you. So the first part would be, can you provide some context about, you know, numbers and how you brought home, and then also a little bit of a behind the scenes peek at that actual process that you just talked about, notifying somebody and walking the family through that, a little bit of details.
It is. So why it's the world's most successful private MIA search and recovery organization. We kind of work in conjunction with the Defense POW MIA accounting agency. That is a completely separate government agency responsible for the oversight of the mission of returning America's fallen from all over the world. And then what they will do is they will reach out to partners in specific areas, regions, for their expertise to help them research in that mission. And the reason I love it so much more is the privatized industry doesn't get involved to the point where they are the person that is calling a family saying, we just located somebody. That should always be, and will always on my watch be, the government agency. Just like a staff sergeant shows up on somebody's door to say, as a CACO or a captain that says, unfortunately, your son is not coming home. There's a personal connection. There's a uniform there. That whole thing that we don't leave our dead and wounded behind, and that military will find you, that connection still needs to come from the active duty military, because it says that their service mattered and your family mattered. And it isn't just privatized people, that they care about that. So you have roughly 385, almost 390 recoveries. No one is close to any of that amount of recoveries.
That's
the only
incredible.
people that are close to that is a project called the Oklahoma Project.
Yeah.
And that is people who had identified a lot of the unknowns from Pearl Harbor. And those people did a magnificent job in the Offutt lab of DNA assignment to the unknowns on the capsized USS Oklahoma. And they have hundreds of numbers that they've identified and returned them back. Privatized industry was 390 sets of remains, and 161 of those have been positively identified and given back to their family.
That's incredible, brother. The closure that you provide those families, you know, it's got to be immeasurable to them. I've watched the ceremonies, and I'll put some links out on YouTube of some of the ceremonies that have happened for some of the fallen that you brought home, and they're very moving and they're very patriotic, and that's the other thing. Really, just grassroots type things, and that I love. So now you're doing that, and that's going very well. You're doing that for a few years, and what inspired a 53-year-old man with the injuries that you've had, with the combat tours that you've done? And, you know, I get to see you a lot, so I understand, you know, the behind the scenes of indeed how bad your body is in, how bad a shape it's in. Why did you and Rocky and Shino just say, hey, you know what, man, we're going to walk across America from the Constitution all the way over to damn Oregon?
Well, roughly the year 2000, Rocky and I, who used to be my headquarters first sergeant in the 3rd Marine Regiment when I was his regimental sergeant major, it was kind of my right-hand man. As you very well know, that headquarters first sergeant, it does a lot of the work out there for that regimental sergeant major with that headquarters unit. And we became really good friends. Rocky was a 24-year infantry Marine who just did infantry. This guy's a ground pounder his entire career, been decorated for bravery 3 or 4 times, 3 Bronze Stars with combat Vs. This guy walked the walk. It was on it. So Shino, Ray, used to be a staff sergeant that worked in the 3 shop of that same unit and kind of helped run the corporal's course, do a few other things, and then he gets out after 11 years in the Marine Corps, roughly about that time period. We'd always have discussions, Mark, about the things that we never got to do or never got to see because you're deployed so much. And a lot of the conversations with Rocky was just some of the things that you take for granted that people have seen in their life. He never got a chance to see any of these. And he would tell me that. And about a year before that, before COVID shut down, he's a rabid Bears fan. So I surprised him, bring him over. When you retire, I need you to come over here because you're a good fit for this, man. This is what you can do. Have you ever seen a Bears game? He's like, no, never. I mean, and he is as rabid as you are a Pats fan. I don't know, you're sitting there like, okay, bro. Surprise, man.
It's not the end of the world.
Here's your retirement. Here's everything else. Congratulations. Thanks for all that work you did for me and everything else. You and I are going to go see a Bears and a Packers game.
Yeah.
And since you're a football historian, we're going to see it in Lambeau Field.
Oh, wow.
I've already got the tickets, got everything else.
Nice.
You just need to fly in. We did it. And so we did that.
Yeah.
And we went, spent 3 or 4 days, did the tour at Lambeau, did everything else that was around there, right? You're sitting here like, this is really cool. And as you're establishing those conversations, you're finding out all these other cool things that nobody really got to do somewhere along the line. Didn't get to see Yellowstone, hasn't got a chance to do this and that. Then COVID hits and the world shuts down. 2 more years pass and search and recovery operations around the world stopped. So now you're talking people are unemployed out there, the scientists, and you're starting to see the world wake back up. But it's not waking up really fast. And in the meantime, Mark, all the momentum that was happening in search and recovery stopped. More importantly, all the momentum of people understanding what Memorial Days were about, what Veterans Day was about, that kind of stopped too, because life creeps in when they're putting masks on and everything else, thinking like a lot of these other things aren't so important, like their own lives, and they're sheltering in place. And now the world's opening back up, but we've lost a lot of ground, man.
Yeah.
And so now I'm 3 years older. And some of those injuries we talked about are precluding either riding a bike or doing something like this. But the goal is still there on this. And that turns into me going down to the post office one day in Fredericksburg just to drop off a letter. And I looked up and saw POW MIA flag. And it was a large one underneath the American flag. And it's like that on every federal building. It's around the nation. And this was tattered. And I just went inside and asked somebody about, do you have anything that could replace the flag that was out there? And the lady was beautiful, really nice. She said, we know that that's out there, but it takes a long time to get the replacement. We have to put the order in. And you and I, government, we understand bureaucracy. It's what it is. I got to go through official channels. I happen to have one of those flags. Like, I'll give you guys a flag. I'd appreciate it if you guys would put that flag up, take that one down. Here you go. And she said, can I ask, I've worked here a long time, can I ask why that means so much to you? And he gave me a 5-minute opportunity to tell her why that flag flies over the post office, why it's the only one in America authorized to fly underneath the American flag. If you're in a state flag can be there, right? Along with that flag and the American flag, but that's only it's the only other thing across all 50 states that's authorized to fly next to the American flag on every federal building. And that was very important at one time for people to do that. Motorcycle rides by the hundreds of thousands of people used to come to DC on the POW MIA rides. And this was a generational thing. And I kind of started to put 2 and 2 together, Mark. And the 2 and 2 was our generation, we brought everybody home. We didn't bury people in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even when they were killed, we would do whatever we could do to find them, make sure they got on a transport and they were buried in Arlington or somewhere else that was here. Vietnam, Korea, and World War II was not like that. And a lot of those guys got left in rice paddies, on beaches. It didn't matter. And some got left in overseas graves that were completely bulldozed over or forgotten about. But the average American thought that they're being taken care of over there. because her family was told, here's the photograph of the grave of your son that's on Palau or it's on Guadalcanal or that. And then you find out there's somebody's outhouse that sits here that day. And then they're like, that's not supposed to be like that. When we in Afghanistan, Iraq started bringing everybody home, America started to lose what that black flag was for. There was no more prisoners of war. There was no more people being left behind. And even though they were losing casualties, they were coming home to be buried. So there wasn't news articles of missing people out there. It wasn't in the psyche anymore. And she was almost in tears. And she had said, I never felt or understood what that flag was for the way that you just made me feel like that. I now understand why it doesn't need to be tattered flying up out there. She didn't have a military connection. And I was like, wow, if there was a way that I could talk to people like that, a human thing, doesn't take a half an hour, just a 2-minute, 3-minute conversation, then that person will tell somebody else, that person tells somebody else. And if that leads to one more family getting their person back because somebody made donations to care, called up Rocky, and I said, I think I got the mission to tie to a walk and have a purpose for this walk. And what that was then trying to figure out a time frame, how to do it, and what to do it. And as we were talking, I think Rocky had a couple bottles of wine. I probably had a 6-pack. It was in there. And he recalls me saying, hey, are you still in? Do you want to do this? And we talked a little bit more, and he remembers me saying, because if you're not, I'm just going to open up the front door and walk out and do it myself. And I didn't mean to try to punk anybody out or that. And he said, when I heard that, I knew that you meant every word that you were saying, and I could not let you go out there and do that by yourself. So I said yes. And then he hung up the phone, and he said, after I said yes, I just figured out what the hell I just signed up for.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea.
It's like a call. It's like a call to action. That's what it sounds like. And unbelievable how the way that you laid it out. And I never really thought about it like that neither. I mean, you just taught me something. I never really considered that point of we never left anybody behind. However, all these other battles, because there was so many casualties out there, and also just the ditches. I know I've been down your headquarters, and you've opened up the books for me and stuff. I had no idea about that. And I think that's the thing. Like what you did is you felt the call to action. You took the steps to do it. You took a lot of steps to do it. But then during your journey, can you talk a little bit about not just the walk itself, the logistics of it, but the messaging, right? So you're out there, you're on a mission. You're a natural teacher. I view you're almost like an educator. Just every day in your life, you're always educating and teaching people things. So like, how did that unfold as you were walking 2,365 miles? 3,365. Yeah. Go ahead.
Plus 40,000, 50,000 steps a day, whatever that you have, right? So to the history part, why Boston? My wife's retirement flag in the Navy was flown off the Constitution. My retirement flag at sea was flown by Colonel John Atkinson off the USS Constitution when it went out to sea to do. So the Constitution represents naval infantry. It represents our amphibious roots, and it represents Rocky's never been to see the Constitution or anything and just fought and almost given his life for it, this entire country. Come to Boston. June 6th, why start June 6th? I was looking at the wall when we were like, so when are we going to start? And you got to put a date on the wall. And I was looking at my father's assault certificate from surviving the Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944. And I said, how about June 6th? Now, this is March, April, May, June. Ain't nobody been walking around the neighborhoods, maybe walk to the mailbox or downtown or something like that. No one's training. Nobody's doing anything. It starts with the concept of do what you can, use what you have, and anybody can get out and do this. That was the initial concept. That was sorely understated and rapidly figured out when we fired the deck gun off the Constitution at 08 on June 6th, and you're looking at your family in the rearview window, and it's like, oh shit, this is real, right? And you've just told everybody you're doing it. So there's a risk to this. You don't finish this, here you go, man. And then you're estimating X amount of steps a day. So why was it Route 20? It was easier to land nav. There is a road that runs all the way across America that starts in Boston and it ends in Newport, Oregon. And it is a U.S. highway that's authorized to walk on. The blue interstates, you cannot walk, bike on them or anything. The U.S. ones, white shields, you can, unless they join with a blue. So, man, all we got to do is keep walking west. And it's a road. How bad can this be? That's how it starts.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Also, we're carrying packs.
Yep.
Or the fabricated cart that I had for supplies, because there's no safety vehicle, there's no nothing.
Right.
And it's just a couple old Marines out doing this. And we estimated we'd have to walk at least 20 miles a day for X amount of months
Right.
in order to get there. The first couple of weeks, Mark, we were only walking 10 or 11 miles because your feet are bleeding, your body feels like it's been beaten with a baseball bat, and you're not, the muscle recall and all that's not coming back like when you were in the Marines. Your bodies are like, bro, we're done with all this. What's that pack on our back? What? These shoes aren't working out. You know, different things like this that you had to experience. You couldn't plan for it because nobody had done this before. So each day you're patching up blisters, but each day you're starting to get stronger. So 2 and 3 weeks in, when you're going through the Berkshire Mountains, that everybody's telling you that even though you see it on the map and everybody's saying Massachusetts is flat, that's a cakewalk. You get the Berkshire Mountains, and even though it's only a couple thousand feet, the Berkshires go like this, all the time. So the Berkshires are actually more challenging than walking through the Rocky Mountains. Why? We wasn't conditioned by the time we got to there. We were by the time 5 months later when you hit the Rocky Mountains and you're doing 9,000 and 10,000 feet elevation changes. So you start there, and now you're walking from town to town like Bilbo Baggins, bro. And
What's that like when you're walking through the towns? I mean, were like some of the towns very quiet? Were other towns like? Did you guys have
first
like?
They thought you were homeless, so nobody messed with you. You guys must be homeless. You know, who would be out here walking on the road? And then even Rocky would get upset sometimes. He'd be like, I'm wearing expensive gear here, man. Homeless people don't wear walking sticks and these packs. I don't look, and I'm sitting here like, bro, you are starting to look homeless, right? The beard's coming out. We're all doing this. Yeah. And the people were beautiful, right? They don't know enough about what's going on to put 2 and 2 together of what they're seeing. As each town you go through the town, you're starting to do what you're doing with this podcast, right? I don't know how to do any of it, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yep, that's right.
Okay? There's really no rules. I can watch a million podcasts, but until I get behind the mic, I don't know how to do. We're just going to roll with it. I'll make mistakes. I'll do whatever.
Yep.
That's what happened. Wrong gear. Let's get these shoes replaced. Throw them in the trash. Let's start getting more athletic gear. Start doing this. Pieces make pounds, pounds make paint. It's all starting to come back. Where are we going to sleep tonight? There's a volunteer firehouse up the road.
Yeah.
Those guys have a shower. Those guys have this. They'll help out. They'll do, and you're starting to do that. And then when you start to get the conversations with people and they find out what you're doing, their jaw hits the deck.
Yeah, right.
Their jaw hits the deck because they go and Google you. And the first thing they say is, you don't have to be doing this.
Right.
You don't have to. You have money. You have a very successful life. You have a family. You've been very successful at doing this. There's no cause and effect why. And then they want to know why. I said, to be able to package that for 3,365 miles, to basically be like a minstrel going from town to town, explaining to people, you got that flag on your post office. There might be towns in America that only had 20 people in their town, but even a 20-person town has a post office. It might be a one-person shack, but it will say U.S. Post Office. Started going through Pennsylvania, New York, and you're seeing the beauty of America. And you're starting to see that this divide that people was telling you about, you're not seeing it. You're seeing political banners here or anything else, but the people you're talking to are still people that just want to get up, make a living, do good by their family, go have a great meal at night, get back up, do the same thing, and take care of their own people, right? And then you're watching what used to be, as Rocky likes to affectionately say, the bones of America. You're watching some of the greatest industrial towns in the nation that don't exist anymore. And the buildings are all there, but they're empty. They're run down. And these used to employ everybody in the area, and their livelihood all just got stripped away in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whenever it was. Now the town that used to be glorious and grand in 1910 and 20 isn't so. But you would see the people of that town still trying to fix those things up because they had pride in their town. They knew they were from somewhere. They knew that there were hardworking people in those factories. And then we would take our breaks, Mark, in cemeteries. If there's a cemetery, it was really right upside the road. You're not going to get hit by a car. Nothing's going to be around there. Walk up in there, sit down, get all your gear off. And the first thing I would do was walk and read the headstones. And you saw the battle history of the U.S. of America in those headstones. World War I, Spanish-American War, the smallest towns and the biggest towns, everybody made a contribution. Didn't matter if there was only one soldier in there or none. You'd see the white headstones or you'd see an American flag. Everybody made the Constitution. That went on state after state after state. And the more that we started posting on Facebook and social media, that started to take on a life of its own to where you're not working so hard every night promoting. People are doing it for you now and helping out.
Right.
And as people are now starting to join my site, the people who were there from the beginning, they're helping educate the brand new people who are asking the same questions. Where are you guys going? Why are you doing this? Instead of me every night doing that, some lady who can follow that goes, just go to this site and you can catch up here, and they've done that, right? Because they could sense it. You're getting a little frustrated out there asking the same thing over and over again, but they don't know any different. They just want to know, right? That grows. Then you start to get the local news articles. And then the local news articles are owned by conglomerates of bigger people. Hey, this is a great story. Then that starts taking on. So by the time that you start to get to roughly the Mississippi River, all the support that you didn't get at the front end, you started getting in spades. Because at the front end, I had to put, when sometimes you get mad out there. And you're getting mad as you're looking at a site that's only got a couple hundred people. You're out there busting your ass. You're questioning yourself. You're missing your family. You're doing everything else. And you're like, the message ain't, it's not hitting. It's not meeting the mark. And then you're like, but I can't just stop. Right? I can't. We're Marines. We just can't. So we'll keep going. And then as you get stronger and faster and you get healthier and you start doing all this, and it has all these other attributes that come in, the news articles start catching up. And then people start asking, how can I make donations? Then you find out you're not really set up for mass things coming in from different, because it was only smaller things before. And now you're like, okay, I got to go to my daughter. How can we set up 5 different sites? Can we do this? Make sure it's all legal. Here's what we got to do. I don't want it to hear. And this starts going because I found out this is what I didn't plan for, and I learned. It's great to say that you're going to walk across America, and it's cool to say that you're at Boston and you're starting. A ton of people hear that all the time. Very few people ever go through with it. But 1 million people are always asking everybody for money to do their crazy thing. And I found out that in the donation and fundraising world, that a lot of those people have been shafted before because they give people the money up front and then those people quit a week later and they take the money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 3 states, there's not a lot of donations coming in because there's probably a bunch of people going, these 2 old dudes ain't gonna, what? And they're gonna quit. They get to one state or whatever, they forgot. The more that we told the stories and then the stories started telling themselves, the following got so big, bigger and bigger and bigger, that the cops, law enforcement, everybody would be coming out to find us to see what we needed.
Right.
Can we help you in the next town? Multiple mayors would drive from towns away to come. By the time you get to our town 2 days from now, can we do this? And then once people realized, oh my God, they're not going to quit. And we're watching the lifestyle change happen. And they're bringing a part of America to us that we're not seeing on the news. And this is a really cool thing. That just started snowballing to where it never stopped. And then that grew and grew into the international community. You're starting to talk about the London Daily Mail, the news, and you're like, holy crap. World newspapers are starting to cover this about these 3 guys that are walking across the United States. And you find some of the most beautiful people you've ever met in your life. And that's not just New York, Ohio. They're all the same. And they're all happy to show you their town. And they're all really proud about, how they grew up on driving those tractors out in Iowa, or, what Iowa nice is. I've never met people who were more wanting to just say, what can we help you with? Okay, anything you want. That's everybody in the state of Iowa. And they all got a smile on their face. And I'm sitting there at one time, Mark, I'm like, this is bizarre. It's like Stepford, like this. And then one lady, she go, oh, honey, that's just Iowa nice you're experiencing. That's how it is across here. And I'm like, okay, that's just her. You get to the next town, Iowa nice. Get to the next town. Oh, you're experiencing Iowa nice. And you're starting to learn the regional catchphrases too that resonate with those people. And Nebraska, Wyoming, and you're starting to see some of the greatest places like Yellowstone. 88 miles walking across Yellowstone in the dead of winter. And we're the only people that's allowed to be on foot walking through Yellowstone because the park has been shut down. But we were allowed to walk through the park. So there isn't thousands of tourists. There isn't anybody. It's you and it's nature of the beauty of Yellowstone. There are people their entire lives. I doubt if Teddy Roosevelt or anybody ever got to really look and experience a thing like that for 4 days. Or on the other side of the Cascade Mountains in Oregon, where I thought I walked into Middle Earth. I thought there's hobbits and Ewoks freaking popping out of the ebb and the tree line and the mist, and you're sitting here going, we were just freezing our ass in 5 feet of snow at the top of this hill. And we walked down and changed 2 climate zones like we were in a different continent. And now it's rainy, it's misty, it's mystical in there. And you're like, this is a beauty you don't normally get to see if you're just driving along the interstate like we all have done in the military. PCS one coast, PCS the next. Maybe stop at Disney, maybe see the Arch in St. Louis. This is America this is how it was meant to be seen.
Yeah, the journey was, I know it inspired a lot of people. I remember when I joined the Long Road group, I think there was 58 when I started. When you finished, it was tens of thousands. Mm-hmm. For you, it's all about the messaging and the teaching and, looking at something that's bigger than you and going out there and promoting that mission. Now, when you think about all those steps that you took and walking, when you finished in Oregon, do you feel like the mission was worth it? And how was the reception when you got there?
The mission was worth it. The reception was phenomenal. The whole town of Newport changed out. And these are people in America that a lot of people are being told that they're not that patriotic out in Oregon. Or, this is what people saw cities on fire years ago, doing different things. The whole town turned out, American flags all down the wayside, fire trucks, police officers. And we're talking hundreds of miles to Oregon. A lot of towns turned out like that. Then the big thing at the tail end pops in of the finish line. And the reception went on for 3 days. Brought our families out. Everything stayed there. Whether it was, can we get you dinners? Can we do it? They truly loved. They wanted to be a part of this. And they were very happy that it was ending where they were at. So you wrap all that together, the mission, the POW flag, and then the culminating thing was when I stepped into Oregon. I happened to be the national commander of the oldest veteran service organization in America called the Legion of Valor, founded in 1890. Its recipients are all Medal of Honor and Service Cross recipients that make this up. Route 20, individual states had tried to make that the Medal of Honor highway, and certain states had ratified it, others had not. By the time that I got to Oregon, the network of the activity of people watching this, then all of a sudden it's in the news. All of a sudden people are calling congressional representatives, other people, a man by the name of Dick Tobiason that's out in Oregon, was a big proponent of getting a lot of these signs that was out there. And by the time that we got there, right before we pulled into Newport, he said, here's a sign for you, congratulations. This is now being ratified as the first coast-to-coast honored veterans highway.
That's
and it is
awesome.
named the Medal of Honor Highway in every state, and you are the national commander of the Medal of Honor, the Service Cross recipients, and as the national commander, he goes, I've never seen something of leadership by example. He goes, you're now the national commander, the first time at the close of the America's Medal of Honor Highway, 3,365 miles. And they were all there at the end of a lot of those people who had met you along the way.
Yeah.
They'd taken their time and went to Oregon. And then they start breaking out stacks of things. And like, can you sign this? Can you sign this? You're sitting like, okay, I get it. Still sitting here today with you, Mark. How many times I've told my family and everything else, it still feels like, did I really do that? Did that really happen? Me and Rocky talk about it all the time. I've got thousands of photographs that said it happened. But you still look at these and you know what happened on that date. But still the epic thing of coast to coast, walking. A lot of people drive it, few people bicycle it, nobody ever walks that thing. And they don't do it with weight on their back. Even a lot of hikers will tell you, that ain't good, man, walking 40 pounds a kid on your back for 3,000 miles across America. But it also wanted to show, one, the determination and spirit of Americans, determination and spirit of Marines, determination in the brotherhood of I am my brother's keeper. I'm not letting somebody by themselves walk out here. There will be two people that's on the highway, so you've got overwatch of each other to do that. And the reinforcing principles of regardless of your mental, your physical, any other status, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And you do that by showing people how to do that. And then that goes back to your full circle of how does a 53-year-old decide that's not in the best of health, that's body is broken down from 31 years and all that combat. And you're sitting here like, why can't I? And you know what? If I can do it, there's somebody else watching this. And somebody else is seeing that too. And they're in worse shape or something. I am. Whether it's mental, physical, or that. And they're going like, he's 53. What excuse do I have? I'm 27 years old. I'll get off my couch now and start doing this too.
Yeah, good. I mean, good on yourself, Rocky, and Ray, for embarking on this journey. I mean, I know that I can speak on behalf of numerous, not just service members, but Americans, and just say that I watched your journey. I was incredibly inspired by it, especially the meaning behind it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that say, I want to walk across the country, and maybe they do, but they just don't have that message behind it or the purpose behind it. And I know that was from your heart. That has nothing to do with clout. It's all right here from you, JD. Everything you do is right from your heart. So for you three gentlemen that embarked upon that journey, you inspired me. I appreciate that you helped raise. And I said last week when I was doing a quick update on my podcast, I said, I like doing this because it's a break from two-party politics. It's a break from divisiveness and watching school kids fight and watching bullying. And it seems like that's all you see. And your journey, right, just helps drive home that point that there's still a lot of goodness out there that's in America. There's still a lot of great people out there.
There's a lot of great people.
And
this
also,
is truly still a great country.
And the last thing I would say is it's the opportunity, right? Like, I think a lot of people they miss that. They say they look at all the barriers and they don't recognize the opportunities. Right.
I can't because of this, because of this, because of this. All that I can't because of this, and this existed in Ray, Rocky, and my life too.
Yep.
It existed in my wife, my daughter, my grandson, who's going to lose their grandmother and all that for this. So there better be a purpose behind a lot of this. Yeah. Because not a lot of families I know get to open up the front door and just say without a reason, why are you doing this? Don't you want to be here with us? You're losing a lot. You're losing time you can never get back. It's on us. Yeah. So that's the meaning of why does this matter so much is you're losing time that you can never get back with people, and the trade-off better be worth something to do that because you're never getting that time back. And then when you're done with all that, and they were so supportive or anything else, then you better turn that on its head and pay that back in spades too. to
Yeah.
the people who did support you and say, you know, this might be a little bit crazy, man, but I love you. And if this is what you want to do, then we're behind you 100%.
Yeah.
And I am so blessed in my life to be surrounded by not only my family, but a lot of friends like you and everybody, Mark, that is a nucleus of people who are very supportive of each other in their own endeavors of the way that they
Correct.
are.
Yeah.
And they're not jealous of any of it in least bit. They're mutually supporting, wanting to see people be better and succeed. And it's a great day to wake up when you feel that kind of impact and happiness, not only in your own life, but being able to give that to other people.
Yeah, I agree. Congratulations to, yourself, Rocky, and Ray, for doing that. And again, on behalf of a grateful nation and, raising that message and raising the awareness behind all our service members that aren't at home, that are unfortunately still overseas, that you're still working hard to get, thank you. I mean, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I just wanted to kind of summarize everything, and just, I appreciate you coming up to the PWC on the Garage podcast here and sharing and educating and teaching. Thank you for always having my back. Thank you for watching my back in Nasiriyah and my front. And it's an honor to call you, to be friends with you. And if you ever need anything, you know where I'm at and I know where you're at. And I guess that's the last lesson that we can teach the subscribers today is just continue to support your friends. Always support your friends. Sometimes they might get some weird ideas in your head and you might head scratch a little bit, but support their endeavors and support what they're doing. And I just want to tell you, JD, I love you and thanks so much, man.
You too, Mark.
I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Man. Appreciate it.
And keep moving.
The epitome of left, right, left, keep moving is Justin, Rocky, and Ray. More steps than anybody last year. All right, we're going to shut it down. Appreciate you. Thanks.
You as well, Mark. Thank you.